So I told the officer, I have driven way more drunk than this. And he laughed. And then I laughed. And then he laughed. Anyway,
Welcome back to Hoops HD,
I need bail money.
everybody. This is our Under the Radar podcast. David, do not drive drunk.
I need bail money. I can't get out. They've got me locked in here again.
Drunk driving is bad. Watching hoops on Thanksgiving Day is a good idea. We are recording this here Wednesday evening, the night before Thanksgiving. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood, joined by a picture of David Griggs. We got Rocco Miller and John Stalico with us as well.
I think jail is going to be preferable to the puppet bunker for David.
Probably, yeah. It actually it isn't so bad. Like, they got cable TV in here.
Well, first of all, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. For those of you especially watching this on Thursday morning, I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. We are, as I said, recording this around 8:30 Wednesday night, so games that went final after this we're not going to be discussing. But this is our Under the Radar podcast. And David, can you start out from your puppet bunker there and tell us what it means, what Under the Radar means?
Well, essentially, it means two things. You're in one of the 22 regular one-bid leagues. So you have the 5 power conferences, the Big Ten, the Big 12, the Pac-12, the ACC, and the SEC, and 5 other regular multi-bid leagues. That's the Atlantic 10, the Mountain West, the Big East, the American, and the West Coast. It's anybody outside of those 10 leagues that is also not ranked in the top 25, which no one outside of those teams outside of those leagues currently is. So essentially, that is how we define Under the Radar. We hate the term mid-major. That's the term a lot of people use to refer to these types of teams, but we don't like that. It's too non-descriptive, so it's just Under the Radar.
Well, not only is nobody from these 22 leagues not ranked in the top 25, only 2 teams even receive votes in the AP poll. Nobody in these 22 conferences received any votes in this week's coaches poll. So we're not even close to anybody in the top 25 by what last week's poll said. Yeah. However, let's go ahead here and pull up the screen here. But we may have a change next week based on what happened last night. Nathan Bain with 0.2 to 0.1 of a second left. Rocco, let me bring you in here on this game last night. The Southland Conference's Stephen F. Austin Lumberjacks in one of the most amazing regular season games I think I've ever seen.
Unbelievable. I'm going to have to go back and watch the whole thing from the start. I got to be honest. I had my eye on the score most of the night and then took off for movie night, not expecting to look at my phone after the movie ended to a bunch of texts and tweets and everything else about Stephen F. Austin winning. But what an amazing play by Bain to get that loose ball. But more than that, to have the courage to take it all the way to the basket, not pull up for 3, not pull up from the elbow, just have it exactly timed to get it off like you see on the picture here with 0.2 to go. Another cool thing about Nathan Bain, he comes from a town called Freeport in the Bahamas, a town that was hit very hard by the hurricane earlier this year. And lost pretty much everything back home. So it couldn't happen to a kid in more of in a tough situation to kind of lift his spirits and his family's spirits with such an unbelievable, memorable moment like this.
Yeah, and David, we had gone 27 years since an unranked non-major conference team had won on the road at the number 1 team in the nation when it happened earlier this year when Evansville won at Kentucky. It took us a whole 2 weeks for it to happen again.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy to think that what had not happened since 5 years before anybody in either one of those games was even born has now happened twice in about 15 days or whatever it was.
But just go more of the craziness of this. It had been, I think, 19 years since Duke had lost a home game, lost a home non-conference game to anybody. And it had been since 1983 since Duke lost a home non-conference game to a non-power conference team. They lost to Wagner back in 83, and that was the last time that happened at home. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, that is quite an amazing streak. This was so unexpected, and as crazy as what happened 2 weeks ago was, I think this actually may have topped it. SFA, like Evansville, not picked to finish at the top of their league. SFA in a far weaker league. A transfer-heavy team that we just didn't expect to see much out of. And then they go in there and play like that. And you had mentioned before we started the show, Chad, just how good SFA looked throughout that game. I mean, it was not that Duke played anywhere close to their best game, but I mean, SFA earned that one.
Now, to put that number in perspective, that was Mike Krzyzewski's third season at Duke, where he still had not even so much as won an ACC conference tournament game.
Right. And SFA was a 27.5-point underdog. I think they went back 17 years. They hadn't found a team that was that big of an underdog who had won a game at all in Division I. It's
another truly historic upset.
And you can see on the screen here, here's the standings in the Southland Conference. SFA now has 4 Division I wins. Stalika, the entire conference has 5 D1 wins besides other than SFA's 4.
And one of those was from Nichols, who actually won at Pitt like right after the season had opened for the Panthers.
So the ACC really struggling against the Southland this year.
Yeah, and I'll put some team sheets up here. If you look, here's SFA over here on the left. Rocco tested Alabama, and they may not lose another game all season if they win that one.
Hey, who knows? I mean, they did lose to Rutgers, so that could be
they did. Yes, they did. That's going to be Rutgers' signature win this season. It's going to be a huge one.
What a great endorsement of Rutgers basketball.
Rutgers basketball. They're gonna stay in the hunt because of a win over SFA at home. Who knew? That's the beauty of college basketball.
Yeah, but that is the schedule. And the Southland is playing a 20-game conference season this year. They're actually going to start conference play in the middle of December because of that. But David, is there anybody else worth giving any serious discussion with our featured conference here, the Southland Conference? I mean, we mentioned Nichols' one win, but
yeah, we mentioned Nichols, and again, like they had the win, they had the near loss, or like the very close losses to both Rhode Island and I'm blanking. Who was the other team that they
Illinois.
Illinois
and LSU,
yeah, and I know LSU beat them pretty good, but LSU is pretty good. But like, I mean, really kind of flexing their muscles there. And about a week ago, we were talking about how we thought Nichols was probably the team to watch in this league. But I mean, I'm still a little, it's just we've seen so many things in these first 3 weeks, both under the radar and not, that you just didn't expect to see. I mean, what a surprise-filled November it has been.
Well, there had never been a November before where more than number one team had lost the entire month of November. We've now had 3 number 1 teams lose this month. And there's still a couple more days left. Who knows?
I guess
who's
Louisville got next? They better look out.
Well, actually, Louisville won't be number 1 until December. But I guess
true.
Duke have another
I think
game
it's
left.
Western Kentucky for Louisville.
Yeah, it is on Saturday. We'll get to that a little later.
Upcoming schedule here, though, in the Southland Conference. I'm not that certain that – I mean, SFA's next game is at Arkansas State. The way this season is going, I wouldn't be shocked if they lost that game. It's a competitive Arkansas State
if they
team.
lost about 30, it wouldn't surprise me.
I don't know if there's anything else really worth – Rocco, is there anything else really worth circling here in the conference for this week?
I think we should focus on New Orleans hosting Xavier, but that would be the Xavier Gold Rush.
That's a crosstown rivalry, though, Rocco.
Yeah, it is. Xavier of New Orleans, baby. No, I think the game I had circled was also SFA at Arkansas State. Arkansas State actually went to Fort Collins and beat Colorado State last week, and they won their tournament. So I think that could actually be a pretty good game to watch.
Yeah, I think it would be. Yeah, that's kind of that is the signature game of the week, I think, out of this league.
Absolutely.
Let's jump back here and run through the rest of the other 21 of these under the radar conferences. We're going to start things off in the America East, where I think we have one of the best under the radar teams, even though they already have 2 losses. Vermont, one of their losses was to Virginia in a very respectable game, but a little bit scratching my head here, though, on what happened against Rider on Sunday in the championship game of the Hall of Fame Classic there. And
they just didn't look that good after looking fantastic against Virginia. I mean, nothing against Rider. We'll get to them here in a little bit, but a real disappointing showing for Vermont and a real damaging one because, as we always discuss, when you play in one of these leagues, your margin for error is small. I mean, unless you just get out there and beat several top 10 teams, like you can't lose a game like that, or you can't lose many like that.
Yeah, Rocco, Vermont did bounce back tonight with a commanding 93-44 win over Gallaudet University. It's not on the screen there, but But what about the rest of this league? Is there anybody else that could challenge now, especially as Vermont has shown a little bit of a chink in the armor here?
I think there's too much separation still. I think Stony Brook's showing a little bit of promise, but I think the last I saw, they were struggling big time against Delaware earlier today. And then I thought Albany's got an improving team with some newcomers that look good. UMBC, some promise. But there's this Vermont team is really good. I think the Rider game was a little bit of an anomaly. They controlled the entire first half, and then they opened up the second half ice cold. Rider went on a 17-0 run. I think in the first 10 minutes of the second half, it was 22-4. And then Vermont got in a little bit of a 9-10 point hole, fought back, lost by 5. But I think it's more of a credit to Rider coming out in that second half and really coming up with a game plan and some adjustments to throw Vermont off. It's unfortunate because I think Vermont's going to have to be darn near perfect to be in the bubble picture, but they'll get a chance next week at Cincinnati. I think that's our next segment here.
Yeah, I just want to give a quick shout out to Maine first, who did an impressive defensive performance, holding the defending national champions to only 46 points.
It really was.
Still lost by 20 tonight.
What a painful experience that game.
I did not see any of that game, and I'm glad I didn't. But Salika, here's the upcoming schedule here. We mentioned Vermont's next game already is actually they're playing at Yale on Sunday. I think that's the next game there, and then at Cincinnati on Tuesday.
Yep, and if Maine thought they were having a nightmarish trip to the dentist today, I can't imagine UConn on Sunday is going to be that much better for them.
It can't be worse.
Yeah,
26 points.
Wow.
David, over in the A-Sun Conference, another conference that we're going to be talking a lot about, I think, this year because of that team on top there that went ahead and won their event, including the finals. I think they beat Kansas City, they beat Rice, and they beat Morgan State. Not a huge field there, but they did become a trophy.
I'm sorry, Chad. Rocco just mentioned a piece of trivia in the chat here that we have to point out. Maine must be the first team in history to only score 26 points and cover the spread.
There we go.
I had to mention that.
That's a gem right there.
Go ahead, David. How about Liberty with their championship?
I like this team a lot. They blew through their event. They blew through the whole season so far. The one thing that they haven't really been is tested. I've been voting them number one in the Under the Radar Top 10 poll. It certainly isn't because of their merit, and it's just when are those tests going to come? I know we check their schedule every week, but all they've really done is beat up on what the equivalent of a bye game would be. Because even their event was kind of weak. But I think I just think it's going to be like that all year long. I mean, they could end the regular season with 28, 29 wins.
They get 2 SEC road games in December, but one of them is Vandy. Hopefully Vandy's, for Liberty's sake, a little bit better than they were preseason picked. And then the big one is end of December at LSU. I think if they split those two and they look competitive, they'll still be in the hunt. But I mean, it's just they have to be too perfect because eventually you have to figure they'll slip up in conference. But
probably,
they look darn good right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, and this is a good team. This is a team that was in the round of 32 a year ago. They returned 4 starters from that team. They have not been like if you look at their profile, it's just a bunch of pastry cards. I mean, they are good.
I agree.
Just a quick note: the ASUN did lose 3-1 to the Metro Atlantic in the Metro Atlantic ASUN Challenge. It was only 2 teams from each conference in the event last weekend, and the ASUN sent Kennesaw and Stetson, and I'm amazed they even pulled out one win with those 2 teams. But,
what a half-assed event! Metro Atlantic wins.
John, the upcoming schedule here in the ASUN Conference, we see. I guess we should talk about Liberty. They're hosting Trinity Baptist in a powerful game Monday, and I think that's the only game they've got on the schedule this week.
Well, the other notable one is going to be
God.
You're also going to have
also.
You're also going to have part 2 of Battle of the Boulevard with Lipscomb making the return trip to Belmont.
Yeah, that's the game I'm circling in this conference for this week. It's always one of the best rivalries out there. Rocco, the Big Sky Conference. I know you're being a West Coast guy. You're a Big Sky fan out there, and we have a undefeated team in the league.
Yes. So Sacramento State went down to Malibu last weekend and got a big-time win against Coach Romar and Pepperdine. Really kind of surprised a lot of people, put them on the map. So, yeah, they're off to a 4-0 start. They hadn't really played anybody until winning that game at Pepperdine. And now I was looking at actually their upcoming schedule and trying to learn a little bit more about this team because I didn't expect a lot out of them. But they'll be at Colorado this Saturday, so we'll see if they can stay competitive. That's an exciting story for the conference. I also think, I've actually got to see Southern Utah play a few times this year, starting with that win at Nebraska. I think this is a pretty good team. I know they're only 3-3, but they've got some players, and I think they'll be – if they get the Big Sky Auto bid, they'll be a tough out in the tournament for whatever seed they get.
East Tennessee State beat up on Southern Utah pretty bad, but it's a good ETSU team.
On their home court,
And it was on their home court, I mean, Montana State, the other team, of course, we mentioned them, talked about them a bunch last week with the win over Greensboro as well.
And
going
Eastern,
back to Sacramento State.
Eastern beat Belmont last night as well.
Yes,
so I think they deserve a call out.
Yeah, that's a note of those. Not the Belmont team we've seen in the last couple of years, but definitely.
I think I forgot to vote for East Tennessee State in the poll.
Okay.
Sorry, John.
John, you had a comment?
I was going to say, for Sacramento State, they've only been D1 since 1991. That's only the third time they've managed to start 4-0 in that time span.
The upcoming schedule here in the Big Sky Conference, I guess if we're looking at Sac State, huge test coming up at Colorado on Saturday. David, any other games we're circling in this conference?
Oh, how about the West Coast Baptist invading Southern Utah and Idaho State?
Washington State, Idaho, coming up on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, Wazoo,
That's
Idaho.
a big rivalry.
Big
rivalry. Chad, you got a couple bits of trivia about this rivalry.
Okay.
They are 8 miles apart, just two schools.
And
They are. Well, it's 7.4.
How many times have they made the NCAA tournament?
And they've never met in the NCAA tournament.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't think any other two schools can say that, can they?
Nobody else that I know of can say that.
John, the Big South Conference. Let's talk a little bit about this league here. And I don't know what we're going to talk about much of this league, though. I haven't really seen much out of it so far, although Campbell, I guess, is 4-1.
Yeah, Campbell 4-1, not too bad the year after Chris Clemens graduates and moves on. But Gardner Webb also had, I think it was the undercard portion of the Cancun Challenge where they beat Tennessee Martin in Northern Colorado. But the win against NOCO is actually going to be a pretty good one as far as the metrics are concerned.
Yeah,
I'm still a believer in this Winthrop team. I mean, I know they're 2-3 and that kind of but I mean, two of their losses, one a very close game to Fresno State, another one, and they do have that win over St. Mary's.
So a 3-point loss at home to Tennessee Tech. David, come on.
It's not a good loss.
They like to play close games. I think that's
what they like to play close.
No matter how good or bad the other team is.
I guess we got to give a little shout out to Hampton here as well with a powerful 71-point output against Illinois to only lose that game by 49 points.
Hey, speaking of Hampton, I saw their team bus yesterday. They were playing San Francisco during the daytime yesterday, which I totally forgot about, or I might have gone.
Anyway. Yeah, they lost that game as well. The upcoming
Great shout out, Chad. Great shout out.
Winthrop at Duke. This is our chance here on Friday night for the number one team to lose in another game here in the month of November. David, it's going to happen?
No.
Okay. I don't know.
Hold on a moment. One of our favorite under the radar teams playing on Saturday, Tacoma Falls.
Oh, yes.
Going to Presby.
Rocco, another West Coast conference here. Maybe can't get the screen up. We screwed everything up. Show's over. Go home. I'd like to talk Big West, but I can't get the screen to show this Big West standings. But
it's still the Big South, Chad.
If the Big West does come up, Rocco, well, what are your thoughts on what we've seen out of this conference so far?
It's a little disappointing, to be fair. I think UC Irvine's really had some poor performances for a team that came in with some expectations and coming off of a round of 32 appearance last year. Even Santa Barbara is off to a rough start. I guess the pleasant surprise, if any, is Hawaii being really competitive at Illinois on the road. I think that just shows that they've got a little bit better talent than last year. And I know that Northridge is really plummeted with an 0-7, but their stud, Lalim Diane, has been ineligible, and they don't know when they're going to get him back. So if they do get him back in time for Big West play, they're still definitely a threat to get this auto bid. UC Riverside's got to be the story overall, starting with that big win at Nebraska, and they've had some other good performances since.
Yeah, they dominated Denver and they dominated Longwood. I mean, they're not playing good teams here necessarily, but they are dominating these games, and that's what you like to see.
And then they're the only team that you wouldn't, classify, or one of the few in this league, as a disappointment, as Rocco said.
And as we look ahead to this upcoming week in the Big West, we have coming up next Wednesday night the Battle of Riverside.
Yeah,
UC Riverside at Cal Baptist.
This one's a war.
These two teams hate each other with a passion throughout their long history of D1 play against each other.
It is a spectacle. I mean, I watched it last year, and I'm still not even over it, and here it is again.
Yeah, I think there were about 10 people at the game, but
yeah,
those 10 of them were into it.
Oh, wow. It was, yeah.
Maybe we'll get 15 this year with Riverside playing so well.
And Sleek, I think you're looking forward to Sunday's Battle of Hawaii. Also there, Hawaii Pacific at Hawaii.
Yep, another of the fabled Pac-West schools playing here.
John, let me stick with you. The Colonial Athletic Association, they're actually now, they just finished off tonight a win over Stony Brook. So now 7-0, the mighty Fighting Blue Hens of the University of Delaware. Where the hell does this team come from, and should we take them seriously?
Well, I think Delaware also got, 3 season opening wins in a neutral court tournament down in Kissimmee, Florida. So they've gotten off to a decent start.
Yeah.
David, go ahead.
They look pretty good. I mean, at first you're just kind of chalking it up to weaker competition, but, if you see them play, they're actually not bad. And, not a team we were expecting much out of. I think we were bigger on College of Charleston and Hofstra, and neither one of those have really shown up yet, although Hofstra does have a couple notable wins.
Yeah, Hofstra has come to California, and I don't think they want to go home. They got one more game tonight in San Diego, but they've already beaten UCLA and Fullerton here since they've been in the state. So
yeah. Well, Rocco, is Delaware still the team to be in this league though?
It's hard to say.
Not there yet.
Yeah, they've just beaten up on a lot of teams like 200 plus. So I want to see them face somebody in the top at least 150.
Well, they got a huge game coming up here on Friday night. They have hosting Maryland Eastern Shore.
That's not a huge game.
Then Columbia.
It's
going to be a little while until we find out more about this Delaware team.
Getting confidence at least.
You mentioned at San Diego. They got Holy Cross coming up on Sunday among the notable games this week. Old Dominion, William and Mary. I guess that's an old Colonial rivalry.
Holy Cross is not notable this year.
Yeah,
Old Dominion's really falling apart. They just got
they have. Jesus.
David, how about a little Horizon League action? No, I'm sorry. How about Conference USA before we get to the Horizon League? Let's do these in alphabetical order.
Speaking of Old Dominion,
Speaking of Old Dominion, who's kind of fallen apart.
I think there's two teams we need to discuss here. First of all, the undefeated UTEP Miners, even though they've only played 2 D1 games. One of them went against a short rivalry games. One of them went over a shorthanded New Mexico State game. The other went over New Mexico. So. Nothing notable wins at least, and then WKU
they have yet to win a game against a team not from New Mexico. So, but anyway, they look good in both those games. Although, you have to realize, what are they going to do when they play somebody for real on the road? Are they going to be able to sustain it? But they are no longer like the just stink bomb tire fire that they've been for the last couple of years. Western Kentucky kind of not what you wanted down in their tournament down in the Paradise.
Well, they did go 2-1. The only loss was the Bowling Green game, which was a good close game against a good team.
And it was a good game, but I think that they needed to they needed a win over a team like Cincinnati and to kind of make their mark, and they didn't really get that. Although they're not off to a bad start.
You're telling me wins against Illinois State and Florida aren't going to cut it for the Hilltoppers?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, if they beat Louisville, then they'll have something going. But who else who else were you big on here, Chad?
That was it. I like WKU. I like what I've seen out of UTEP. I don't really like what I've seen out of everybody else. I mean, I know UAB is out to a good start. I just don't know that I've seen enough of them yet to believe in it. They really struggled with Lamar the other night.
Yeah, I mean, they're off to they've won a lot of games against bad teams.
Yeah.
Barely.
I mean, we were looking at Charlotte a couple weeks ago as a team that had beaten both Davidson and Wake Forest at home, but they've got to be a home court hero because they were not in a good spot at App State nor Georgia State.
Oh, App State blew them off the floor.
Yeah, they lost in overtime today, Georgia State game.
That's Georgia State, 81-78, that final out of today's game. The upcoming week in Conference USA, again, we've got to pay attention to what UTEP is getting at. They're about to tip off against East Central. I think that's related to South Central.
Tuesday in Las Cruces, I think, is the game you're looking
Tuesdays in Las Cruces, New Mexico State team that's starting to play really well, although they're in a tight game right now as we record this. If you're looking over at UAB, they're at Kentucky, so we'll learn a ton about them Friday night. The way Kentucky has played so far this season, I would not be surprised if UAB is in that game. So
yeah,
exactly.
At WKU against Louisville on Friday, I think we mentioned that game a little bit earlier. Even that's a big one.
Yeah,
yeah. WKU sneaky tough game right after that at Wright State as well.
Yeah, very good Wright State team. In fact, speaking of Wright State, Rocco, great transition. How about that Wright State team in the Horizon League?
Yeah, they've looked good. I got to see them play in a tight one against LaSalle, which they ended up losing last night. But
bounced back today.
Bounced back today. Yeah. So they took third in the tournament.
Yeah.
Solid team, Horizon standards. I think Northern Kentucky's been a little bit all over the map early on. So I think Wright State's my favorite. Illinois Chicago, completely disappointing and not even competitive. I don't know if you guys follow like the Bart Torvik's statistical off-season model, but he does this big thing on how many returning minutes are back. I think Illinois Chicago was top 5 in the nation, so a lot of people were calling them a dark horse, and I went with that as well. And
when you bring back a lot of lousy players, you have a lot of lousy players.
Every time they play, I'm scratching my head. I can't figure that team out.
Well, they're not good. I mean, that's how.
I have come to that conclusion as well.
Yeah.
The upcoming schedule is here. Wright State has that WKU game. That's their only game. Northern Kentucky with a trip to Arkansas Saturday, and then Tuesday at Miami, Ohio. So keep an eye on those 2 games, I think, out of this conference.
Yep.
David, Ivy League time.
Okay. My safety schools.
Your safety schools, David. And are we ready to talk Dartmouth yet, or was it still just the schedule?
I've kind of been big on them all year long. I mean, the team that I thought would finish last opens things up with a win at Buffalo. And, while nothing really jumps out of the page, who in the conferences look really better?
Penn has won at Alabama and at Providence now, so I think they have looked a little better in terms of the quality of their wins, David.
Yeah. But, I mean, Penn real schizophrenic as well. But, the 2 biggest wins in the league go to Penn. So I guess that means they have the highest ceiling, but they don't always play up to it.
And Rocco, Princeton had a huge win. They had the game, and that second 3 at home against Arizona State last night, and they fall.
Yeah, they didn't close out on the shooter, left the guy wide open in the corner, and it cost them.
Titel is not here tonight, but I know he must be crushed.
Well, that was a tough one for him. His 2 rivalry schools against each other.
Yeah, that's true. And speaking of Titel, I think he'll be at the Wooden Classic starting. I believe it starts tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah,
yes,
and
he is there.
And you got the Quakers in action.
And he could have Arizona versus Penn in the second round of that tournament. We'll see.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
John, here's the upcoming schedule. Dartmouth, huge game at Bowling Green. If they really are anything, we're going to find out. And then at Georgia State this week is also.
Yeah, that's going to also be big because Bowling Green was coming off of a runner-up finish in the Paradise Jam where they beat Cincinnati in overtime, but not much in the tank against Nevada, though.
Yeah, real good. It's still a good tournament for Bowling Green. I know I just got done knocking Western Kentucky earlier, but, picking up neutral floor wins against Western Kentucky and Cincinnati, good showing even if they couldn't get that last win.
And after their games in the Wooden, the 3 games of the Wooden starting Thursday, Penn comes back to Philadelphia, plays Villanova
this is
on
the
Wednesday
Ivy League.
night.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Penn comes back on Wednesday night playing Villanova, and Rocco, they won this game last year.
They did. Penn won the whole city last year, didn't
Yes,
they?
they did.
Yeah.
They won the Big Five, and they went undefeated in the Big Five and failed to make the NCAA tournament, something no team had ever done. But
And barely made the Ivy League tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of coaches say that Penn's one of the toughest teams to prepare for. So I think a lot of it has to do with how much time they get their game plan installed, and that's how Penn can knock off a lot of top teams. Just from listening to some of the post game conferences when they knocked off Alabama and Providence recently. So we'll see.
John, over the Metro Atlantic Conference, this is a conference that for the second year in a row, I think has been fairly disappointing non-conference, although I guess we've got to talk about we already mentioned the Rider Vermont win, but other than that, I don't know what else we look at in this league.
Well, they did get 3 wins down in Orlando against the Atlantic Sun. So you have to,
against Presbyterian and Stetson. Let's move on. I'm sorry, it's Kennesaw and Stetson. Let's move on.
I mean, I wasn't expecting a lot out of Canisius, and they beat the Bonnies in a local rivalry game, so that was good for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, blowing out that Illinois Chicago team that we love.
Yeah. I mean, all that experience.
Monmouth did actually pick up their 4th win tonight. It's not on the screen yet. They did beat Norfolk State, a team that lost to Caldwell University the night before. So
unbelievable.
Whatever that's worth for Monmouth, who also has had the only loss in that MAC A Sun Challenge. The upcoming schedule, though, David, I don't know. Should we just move on to the next conference?
Next conference. St. Francis, Brooklyn, and St. Peter's.
Actually, Iona UConn there. Tim Cluse going up against UConn. That's going to be a Lee Del Vecchio special there, I think.
Yes. Hopefully, we got to get Lee Del Vecchio to that game.
He probably will be. He goes to most of the UConn games. Mid-American Conference. This is a conference that has been pretty impressive with. I know Eastern Michigan's undefeated. 3 of those games are non-D1s, but Kent State and Bowling Green are the 2 teams that I've really liked so far.
Yeah, Bowling Green. I jumped the gun. I was talking about them when we were in the Ivy. I mean, Bowling Green, just like the Ivy League, sometimes you forget they're not in the Ivy League institutionally. But yeah, great showing for Bowling Green. Again, to repeat myself, down at the Paradise Jam, getting the wins against Western Kentucky and Cincinnati, even though they didn't win the tournament.
Yeah, unfortunate too, because like halfway through the Cincinnati win, Justin Turner, their star player, goes down. Didn't come back the rest of the tournament. They got a gutsy win against Cincinnati despite being down when he was hurt. And then Nevada was able to kind of game plan around him not being available and took advantage of it.
But if you want to talk about missed opportunities, last night Central Michigan actually got out to an 18-point lead against DePaul early in the second half before the ceiling caved in the second half against the Blue Demons.
They fell apart there.
They sprinted out to a big lead, and then DePaul ended up winning by double digits. The contrast between the first half and second half was remarkable.
Yeah, I also like this Akron team. They played Louisville pretty close, and they played West Virginia competitively. They've won their other games, and I think they beat Xavier in a scrimmage. So I think this could be a pretty interesting Akron team to follow this year.
Yeah, some interesting games this week. Dartmouth at Bowling Green. We mentioned that one already. Also, if you want to follow the Akron team, they're hosting Merrimack here Friday night. They got a trip to Marshall next Wednesday. So a lot of interesting games to follow here in this conference. If you look at Central Michigan, and I don't know, they're hosting Youngstown, maybe not as much.
But my favorite is going to be Rio Grande going to Ohio next Wednesday.
Rio Grande. That's not UTRGV. That's Rio Grande, the non-D1 Rio Grande. Also here a note: Eastern Michigan at UC Irvine. That may be finally Eastern Michigan's first loss in the season. I don't believe in this Eastern Michigan team despite the 6-0 record.
They play like 4 non-D1 teams this year, don't they?
Yeah, they've already played 3. They got one more still on the schedule. They started the season with three straight. It was pretty pathetic.
That's bad.
Talking about bad, here's the MEAC conference where we've got such wonderful things as Norfolk State losing to Caldwell University. We had early this year, Howard lost to Washington Adventist. We got multiple non-D1 losses. David, should we talk about these guys again in about March?
Were you talking to me? Because I got the prison here shut down.
Okay. John, should we talk about these guys again in March?
Well, we could at least talk about Coppin State here in November, actually getting to 3 D1 wins before the end of the month, including one at James Madison yesterday.
Yeah, Rocco, is that what you want to talk about?
No, I wanted to give a shout out to our UIW, which is University of Incarnate Word Invitational Champions, Bethune-Cookman, who went down to San Antonio and took care of business against the host Cardinals, and they beat another team that
they beat Eastern Illinois, and they beat St. Francis of Illinois, the third St. Francis, I guess.
That's right. So they love it down there in San Antonio.
Yeah, and Bethune-Cookman was the preseason pick to win this conference. At least was mine. So hey, we'll see.
Good choice so far.
Yeah, and I regret so much that happened when we were discussing the MEAC. My phone crapped out.
Yeah, the upcoming schedule here. I guess if we want to talk a little Bethune-Cookman, they're at Georgia Tech, and maybe a winnable game on Sunday. Then a trip to Stetson.
Didn't Grambling win there last year?
They did. Yes.
I think it's Bethune-Cookman's turn.
Bethune-Cookman is at Stetson on Tuesday, so that's, I guess, the team we should be circling here. But David, maybe if we have you back now, I can ask you about the Missouri Valley Conference. Bradley has one more win. They actually picked up a nice win over Kansas State today in the third place game of the Fort Myers tip-off. So they're actually 5-2.
Good
now.
for them. Northern Iowa playing while we're recording this, or not Northern Iowa. Sorry, winning earlier today.
Yes,
nice
Northern Iowa. So.
And kind of blowing it against West Virginia in a game where they led pretty much the entire way. I know you and I think all of us are kind of big on this Northern Iowa team. You kind of hate that they couldn't have gotten one more big win, especially when they were in a position to get it. But
yeah,
I still like them better than everybody else in the conference. And Evansville, I think, has come completely back down to earth. Not only through the earth, and it's now below the surface.
Evan who? Okay.
Evan Williams.
Evan Williams, maybe. If we go to the upcoming schedule here in the Missouri Valley, Rocco, that there's a few games we should be circling here this week, including Bradley at Memphis coming off of that win over K-State.
Yeah, that could be interesting. Bradley didn't show up against Northwestern, so it was refreshing to see them play well today. I don't know if that's more of a knock on Kansas State or a credit to Bradley, but good for the MVC either way. The Illinois State team's going to TCU. Maybe a couple chances here to knock off some bigger schools. The Valley certainly doesn't get enough of those.
And also keep an eye on Missouri State this week, because Friday they're going to LSU, where a bunch of under-the-radar teams have gone but have been unable to pick up a win. And they'll host Murray State on Tuesday.
If you want to talk Northern Iowa, they've got the powerful Luther College coming in on Monday, so don't forget
Luther
that one.
College. Big Four no more. I wish they were still in that, because they normally did very well.
Rocco, look who is on top currently because of overall record in the Northeast Conference.
Unbelievable. The Warriors, they're ready to roll. They're coming in, and they don't need the 4 years. Is it time to start the waiver?
I think it is. I think we need a Mary waiver for Mary Mack.
Mary waiver. I like that.
I hate that. I hate that it's 4 years. 2 is enough.
They beat Hartford this week on the road. Another huge win after. It's just, and they really. I think David, they've been the best looking team in this conference.
Yeah, well, they certainly did that best looking team in the city of Lowell, Massachusetts, after winning that game the other week. But yeah, they really are the best looking team, and they probably, if they get the chance to play in a postseason tournament, I hope they go, preferably the CIT.
Yeah, they would be eligible for the CIT or the CBI. We'd love to see them in the CIT this year. They're at Akron here on Friday night, and then at Brown on Wednesday. Those are, I guess, the two biggest games here. Some power conference, some bye games here too as well. But it is, this conference is a lot better come January.
Yeah, it is.
John, the Ohio Valley Conference, where we've gone back and forth in this league, but right now nobody's really looking incredible, I don't think.
Yeah, we thought Belmont was going to be the early favorite, and then they lose a game against that Eastern Washington that's part of the round robin Gotham Classic.
And then say Murray State's picking up losses. Rocco Moorhead State got out to I think a 4-0 start, and now they're down to 4-3 with 3 straight losses, including the loss to William and Mary. It's I don't know. I don't know what I'm seeing out of this league. Are you seeing anything?
Yeah, I know. I think some of the bottom from last year is getting better. Like I do think Moorhead's improved. I think Tennessee State's improved. I'm a little disappointed in Murray, in Austin P, and to a degree Belmont. But I do expect it to, by the time we get to the end of January and we look at these standings and everybody's played about 5 or 6 games, I think we'll look at Belmont and Murray as still the favorites.
I do like that call. That shout out to Tennessee State. I've seen a couple of their games this year, and I think that they've looked pretty good, and I think that they are going to be competitive when we get to conference play. Upcoming schedule here in the OVC. There we go. Tennessee State's playing Cal Poly, and obviously we have the round 2 of the Battle of the Boulevard between Lipscomb and Belmont that we already mentioned earlier coming up. Jacksonville State at George Mason, another team there. We didn't mention Jayville State. They don't even have a D1 win yet, David, but we like them heading into the season. So,
yeah, they've been very disappointing as well because they've been getting blitzed.
Yeah, real disappointing from them.
Yeah, Dave, let me stick with you over the Patriot League where, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, again, like the Patriot League, it seems like from week to week throughout conference play, anybody can beat anybody and anybody can lose to anybody. And you kind of get that sense now. Nothing's really jumping out. You get, you sit. You don't think there's a whole lot of separation between, the first place team and the 9th place team, and then you got Holy Cross at 10.
That seems to be it.
Well, I do want to give a shout out to Lafayette, who beat Penn last week.
Yes,
that obviously was pretty impressive, and they won their other game as well, Fairleigh Dickinson. So Lafayette Leopards coming up, a little bit of a surprise there, and I also think Colgate been through the ringer a little bit disappointing, but Jordan Burns is still filling it up. He had 40 points in their win at Green Bay on Monday.
Lafayette has a game Tuesday at St. Joe's. That is a winnable game against a St. Joe's team that I don't think is that great. Although they picked up the win over, was it UConn they beat earlier this year? But I thought that could be an interesting one to circle. John, the SoCon. This is a conference that we're going to be speaking a lot about this year, especially about those top 3 teams there.
Yep, and we do actually have a leader now, thanks to Greensboro winning their conference opener against VMI, and that is correct.
Yep, they are 1-0, and they're going to be 1-0 for a while now, but go ahead.
And then East Tennessee also picking up a few other bye wins against App State and Delaware State, and Furman also keeping pace as well, winning at Elon, and also UT Arlington is today's under the radar game of the day.
Yeah, I missed that game, but that was a huge 1-point win there, Rocco. For
Yeah, they rallied. UTA was up about 6 with a couple minutes to go. Unfortunately, no live feed. The game took place at Elon as part of their event, and I was stuck refreshing the stat broadcast.
Well, that's why I missed the game, obviously.
But it looked like a great game, and Arlington missed. Or actually, it was Furman tied the game with 4 seconds to go, and they called a foul, made the free throw to go up by 1, and held on by 1. So pretty crazy.
Yeah,
game.
and that was after, as Rocco said, trailing most of the game.
Yes.
I do also want to give a quick shout out here to our colleague Brian Black, who had a good show against Western Carolina, only losing, but 54 points against them today. That was him against Western Carolina.
Right, yeah. It's kind of hard. Like he was by himself. It was 5-on-1.
Yeah, but Brian, great job, Brian. 54 points, only losing by 22 at Western Carolina. Nice job.
I would like to see Brian wearing a Brian jersey, though.
We got to work on that. So here's the upcoming schedule. Greensboro's got a trip to Georgetown on Saturday, a game we should definitely be circling.
That's a good one.
Circle Furman at South Florida as well. Here we go. We got a conference game coming up Wednesday. East Tennessee State's at Citadel.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. I don't know why they're doing this, but okay.
Yeah, they seem to be sprinkling in one conference game for everybody throughout the month of November or December.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. The Little Rock East Tennessee State game could be a sneaky good game. Little
Okay.
Rock's put up a fight against a few teams this year.
Salika, Southwestern Athletic Conference, where we have a grand total of 5 D1 wins now.
We have 5.
Thanks to Texas Southern's huge upset win at Northern Kentucky, actually.
Yeah, and I got to see quite a bit of that game, not in person, but that was the game I kept my eye on from tip to buzzer, where Texas Southern seemed to lead by anywhere from 3 to 6 points for a good part of the second half before Northern Kentucky. It looked like they were starting to put the game away, but the Norse blew a 6-point lead in regulation, and Texas Southern actually ended up extending that game to double overtime before getting their first win of the season.
All right. David, Southern, huge win in the Battle of the Jaguars there, not taking down IUPUI.
Right. So, but getting one of the 7 wins that you mentioned.
No team with 2. There's 7. We have, I think it's 5 wins, not 7. 5 wins.
It's still similar to some of these leagues. It's still kind of hard to tell who's better than who, and we probably won't know until they start playing each other. But it's kind of neat to see Grambling at the top of the standings. This is I mean, one of the favorites to win the top of the standings after one out-of-conference win. This is a former centenary winner, a multi-centenary winner, so it would be fun to see them do well in the league.
We should also point out that Texas Southern still has a number 9 strength of schedule in the country, and it's only going to get higher because they go to Gonzaga Wednesday.
They go to Gonzaga Wednesday. After that, on Saturday, they have a very rare November home game. They normally don't play a home game until January. A very rare November home game against Lamar. So, Johnny Jones getting a home game. Mike Davis did not like to play those.
Yeah.
Rocco, the Summit League, Yotes, is that what we're talking still? I know they picked up the first loss, but it was against Arkansas.
Yeah, them and how about Omaha going to Wazoo and winning? That was big for Omaha.
Right.
They've had a good week, 3 wins since the last show. So give Mavericks some credit here.
They won the regular season in this league last year, so
they did. Yes, it was a split title. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe it was, and they lost in the championship game to North Dakota State. I think they tied with South Dakota State for the regular season.
I do think South Dakota is still the strongest team. And a little segue, I know on Monday night they're coming to Washington, and I think it'll be a pretty good test for Washington. They got a nice nucleus. They got a bunch of returning guys that are actually like playing together, unlike Illinois, Chicago. And I think those are the 2 teams that are the class, and North Dakota State's right there as well. So I think we have a nice 3-dog race, and South Dakota State is starting to make some strides, and Oral Roberts is a sleeper team. So I'm kind of liking the way this league is shaping up right now.
Yeah, South Dakota with a couple games before that. They're playing at Cal Baptist tonight. They're at Northern Arizona on Saturday, so they got a few games before they even get to Washington.
Okay.
David, I guess Omaha doesn't play until next week at Arkansas State.
Yeah, I guess they got Thanksgiving off.
Good. Go enjoy it. They just came off of, I think, 3 games in 5 days or something like that, though. But let me stick with you. Jump over to the Sun Belt. We've mentioned Arkansas State a couple of times with some big games that they have coming up. But what about this team in and of itself here? They're out to a 5-1 start.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it, they've looked okay, and there aren't a lot of teams in the league that have looked as good as they are. I still like the South Alabama team a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But Arkansas State, with the bloated record against some weaker competition, sort of another team to keep an eye on. They're certainly doing better than I thought they would.
Yeah, South Alabama right now in the finals. That last check, they're up by 3 against LaSalle. 3 minutes to go to win that championship.
They're up by 1 now with about a minute. Yeah, that's.
Okay.
It's actually tied with under a minute left, but
they were down 13 earlier in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been a good week either way for South Alabama to go out and beat Northeastern and beat Miami, Ohio the way they did. I think that's what they need to show to make a statement in this league. They got a lot of talent, and being able to develop that earlier than later in the season is only going to help them when Sun Belt play starts.
And they just gave up two-pointer and a foul with 17 seconds left in that game, by the way. It had been tied, so not looking good right now for South Alabama in the final close seconds of that game. But, David, should we talk a little bit about Coastal as well? I know we mentioned it on Monday night, but that huge win over Utah before they dropped the game to Baylor.
Yeah,
and Mississippi State.
Yeah, so they came out and just blasted Utah. I mean, yeah, we did talk about that the other night. And then for about 25 minutes, we're right in there with Baylor, just playing out of their minds. They didn't get that, and they didn't get the Mississippi State win. But I don't know if that was a case of them just being really jacked up because they had like those power conference teams on their home court or in their home city, and if they'll be able to sustain that. But they did. They looked good.
Rocco, and they also had an injury in that game, though.
Yeah, so when Coastal was up by 6 in the second half, they had a breakaway. Deba is one of their best players. He's the MVP from the Utah win. Went down with a really bad knee injury. If you saw it on TV, it was ugly. They announced the next day he tore his ACL, is done for the year.
Yeah.
So that was just a brutal piece of news right in the middle of a heated game like that. So they'll have to regroup, and hopefully the Chanticleers can stay competitive because that was fun to watch.
Yeah, it was.
John, here's the upcoming schedule in the Sun Belt. We already mentioned Arkansas State's both their next games, hosting SFA and then hosting Omaha. But anything else you're looking forward to in this league?
Nothing off the tip of my tongue here.
Okay. Well, do you want to talk about the WAC instead? And a little bit of a score update, not yet coming up on the screen. In a close, hard-fought game, New Mexico State did lose by 4 in the championship of the Cayman Islands, so they are now 4-4. But they did bounce back with 2 wins in that event after having struggled so much early in the season.
Yeah, it's also a good showing for the Aggies because if these injuries persist, we're going to have to evaluate them as they are, and beating Colorado State and South Florida on a neutral court is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, David, is this team, despite the 4-point loss to George Mason tonight, is this team going the right way for the Aggies at the moment?
Yeah, they're going the right way, and they're going to continue to get healthy. They'll be back at full strength before the end of the year. In fact, they'll be back at full strength, I think, by the time conference play starts. And they're going to be, I think, as good as we expected them to be. It's just that they're not going to have the profile that they need to get in without winning that automatic bid now. But, yeah, I definitely think I've been big on them. I was big on them coming into the year. I still think that once they get healthy, they're going to be every bit as good and as dangerous as we thought they were.
Rocco, is there anyone else we're paying attention to in this league?
Well, Grand Canyon has been a big disappointment.
Huge.
I did want to give a little shout out to Kansas City for a surprise run to the finals at the Bahamas Showcase before Liberty dismantled them. That was a big surprise. So kudos to them there. Seattle's been a big disappointment. I think by and large, this is New Mexico State's league again. But a lot of basketball left to be played, and we'll see if some of these other teams can get better.
Yeah, there's the upcoming schedule. New Mexico State, after the game today, I think they're off for the next week, so we probably won't be talking about them for a little while again. A little chance for them to rest, to recover, and get some guys healthy again, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
On that note, though, I guess it's time to go to our top 10 list.
I guess it is.
All right, top 10 list. And we have a new category. We normally have our top 10 teams and our honorable mentions. We also have a new category, the NMs, the no mentions. We're not going to be mentioning Evansville ever again on this list, at least this season. But let me start out with the real honorable mentions. These are teams that received votes but did not make it into the top 10. They are Western Kentucky, just missing out of the top 10, along with Montana State, New Mexico State, who we just mentioned, Akron, South Dakota, Arkansas State. Well, even Mary even getting a little bit of love from one of you. But here's the top 10. We'll start at number 10 is Delaware, undefeated Fighting Blue Hens.
That was my number 10 team. So
at number 9, we got Kent State, the team that we all like out of the Mid-American Conference.
Wow, I like them a lot more than that. Jeez.
And the other Mid-American Conference team there at number 8 is Bowling Green. So
I really liked them more than number 8.
At number 7, we've got that undefeated UTEP team. I like what I've seen out of them. The only 2 D1 wins, but they are New Mexico State and New Mexico. At number 6, Furman out of the SoCon.
Furman still holding strong.
And at number 5, we got Northern Iowa still in there. Actually, they won today, so that helps keep them up there.
Yep, like that team a lot.
East Tennessee State out of the SoCon coming in at number 4. Number 3, we've got. How about that Vermont team? 2 losses and
Vermont,
yet in the
despite-
top
yeah.
3. Yeah, it's
Well, one was at Virginia. That's hardly,
mhm. Just a quick score update, by the way. South Alabama and LaSalle are going overtime right now.
Yep.
So we mentioned that
Awesome.
they did tie that game up. Stephen F. Austin, you win at Duke. You get all the way up to number 2.
You
Congrats to the
Yeah.
Lumberjacks.
How
There
are
it
we
is
not
again.
number
There's a shot. It's going to live in memories for a long, long time. And our number 1 under the radar team, it's not going to be any surprise. It's Liberty.
Yeah.
I guess on that note, let's run through any of their final thoughts. Rocco, you want to start us off?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's been a fun week. Watched a lot of games. Getting to that point, after 3-4 days of this, where the eyeballs start to bleed, almost feels like March.
Yeah, it does.
And I'm just like, wait, they're playing again. They're playing again. Oh wait, I already saw them. So it's just been awesome. I did want to go back to the MAC for a second as well. The MAC right now, no teams under 500. I think it's important for their overall power ranking. They continue to climb because they have such a strong floor. They don't have that dominant team like Buffalo in years past, but it looks like the 12 members all have promise. We already like 4 or 5 of those teams, like we talked about during the MAC segment. And so it's just a league to keep your eye on. They got the potential to even pass leagues like the Mountain West and the WCC if they keep playing like this.
I agree with that. I really like what I've seen out of this conference so far. John.
I'll see your MAC and I'll raise you an MAAC, and we'll look at Siena tonight because they got some welcome Thanksgiving news because they will be part of the 2020 Orlando Invitational. It will not feature Jimmy Patso, sadly speaking, but more likely than not, will feature a super sophomore and Jalen Pickett next year. As a frame of reference, last year he was the first freshman to be named to the all-conference team since Lionel Simmons back in I think it was the late 80s for LaSalle when they were members of the Metro Atlantic at the time.
Well, shout out to the L Train, a Philly native. David, you want to finish off the show?
Just, with all the exempt tournaments going on that Rocco alluded to, we've seen a lot of good performances from under the radar teams, but none that have really exploded onto the radar. Not that we see it every year. I know when Buffalo got out to the big start last year, they didn't really do it in an exempt tournament. They just did it in regular season games. But no one – it seems like if you're under the radar, at least as far as the radar is concerned, you have 6 weeks to get the wins that are going to impress the committee and get you into the polls and kind of get you noticed. If you don't get them then – even if you win them all, like no one's really going to resonate. Nothing you do is going to really resonate with the casual fan. It will with us until the month of March. And I'm starting to wonder if anyone's going to do it this year.
Well, that's a great point. And you look at a team like Liberty, who is our number 1 team. They haven't played anybody of note really yet. And the next 2 games, Kentucky Christian, Trinity Baptist. Now they will have games at Vanderbilt and at LSU before conference play starts, but they've got to go perfect in that to get the attention of the pollsters, and hopefully get the committee's attention beyond that as well.
Yeah.
But on that note, I do want to thank everybody for joining us for our Under the Radar podcast. I want to take a chance once again to wish everybody a happy and safe Thanksgiving out there. But on behalf of Rocco Miller from Bracketeer.org, John Stalika, the guy in the whatever prison cell he is there, David Griggs, I'm Chad Sherwood, and we will talk to you again next week.